Good morning. I'm Malcolm Graham Wood. I write Malky's blog, which is a daily analysis of the oil and gas sector. Internationally, we talk about the oil price and stocks as well. We're coming at a time when the oil price is in pretty good nick. As I speak, West Texas is $59.50 and Brent is $68. So it's firmed up quite nicely. Obviously, after the fall of the last quarter of last year, it needed to pick up, and it's been picking up, very steadily. Last time I spoke, we talked about oil being in a narrow range. Well, it's a narrow range with veering towards the upside at the moment. The reasons for that are almost entirely down to OPEC Plus, where we've seen a continued commitment to cutting back production. During the end of last year, the reason for the fall was that OPEC Plus began to realize that with the Iranian oil coming off the market and Venezuelan oil coming off the market as well, they could start producing more. They produced too much. So at their last meeting, they cut back by 1.2 million barrels a day, which so far has been sufficient to keep the oil price fairly tight. So they've had a weekend meeting. Last weekend, OPEC Plus met and discussed the process. And the reason the oil price is steady again today is that meeting came out with a number of points. Firstly, they committed to keeping the 1.2 million barrels a day supply cut in place, which is very important. People were worried that they would start to produce more. Secondly, the Saudis have suggested that they need to keep that cut, the 1.2 million, probably for the rest of the year. Certainly, they're talking a longer period than people initially thought, because the third point is that OPEC Plus were due to meet in April the 16th and 17th, and they've decided to cancel that meeting. They don't feel that that's necessary. So the next scheduled meeting will be the biannual meeting in June, where they'll discuss the cuts from there on in. But Saudis have already said that those cuts will remain in place for the time being. I don't think it rules out expanding the cuts later in the year. All three of the agencies, the IEA, the EIA, and OPEC, have produced their monthly reports in the last week. And whilst they always differ a little bit, the mood has definitely been that the second and third quarter are going to be fairly tight, and therefore the oil price is probably in good shape at the moment. Non-OPEC supply is a problem, in particular in the US, where obviously the US production is rising quite sharply. But even there, the EIA have decided to cut back their growth forecast a bit for US production, and with the rig count coming down, I think that's probably going to come back a little bit. We're still going to have supply problems in Venezuela, in Iran, where the waivers are being made more strict, in Libya, where there's a little extra production, but certainly down on the longer term. And in demand, we're still obviously very, very careful to watch international GDP numbers. We've seen numbers in China coming down a bit, which is obviously the worrying point. They didn't hit the 6.5% GDP growth, 6 to 6.5%. But India's still okay, and a fairly quick glance around the world shows that the US, whereas a few months ago it was looking to be rate rises, it now looks like rate cuts might be being talked about. But gasoline is rising again, and that is unusual. Therefore, demand is picking up for still very substantial demand. Overall, with India going very strongly, I think demand is in a good place. Supply is being tackled firmly by OPEC, and even the big supply from the US is being controlled at the moment. So overall, I continue to believe that the oil price is in a narrow band, veering upwards for choice as we go through the second and third quarters of this year. But I remain positive, and as long as OPEC with Russia, OPEC Plus and Russia together keep their production targets intact, I'm positive that everything will be going well from here. The oil price is set reasonably fair for the time being.